Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start a side event. If you're standing outside, could I ask you to please come inside? We'll be closing the doors soon. There's plenty of chairs at the front and in the middle. Audrey, we have a special seat for you in the front. Since this is Gender Day, we're giving special treatment to all our ladies. Can we all give a hand for our ladies, please? If you don't know this is Gender Day, well, you now know it is. We're giving special treatment to the ladies. So if there's any ladies sitting at the back, there's plenty of room in the front. Go back. Thank you, madam. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, talofa, and welcome to this side event, which is on Pacific Islands climate action and finance. In this side event, we'll be looking at some of the experiences, the successes, and the challenges, and the lessons learned by some of our key Pacific Islands in terms of climate action and finance. But before we get into the substance of this side event, can I acknowledge and welcome the Honourable Enele Sopoaga, Prime Minister of Tuvalu. Can I acknowledge the Honourable Ministers who are here, and ladies and gentlemen, and of course our panelists. Can I extend a warm welcome to you all. It's a pleasure for us to welcome you to this side event, and you will firsthand be hearing from the panelists their experience in terms of planning, programming, designing of projects that are designed really to benefit our communities in respective countries. I suppose this is where the rubber hits the road, so to speak, and the climate finance that the climate finance that we have been fighting so hard for through the negotiations process is now being used for real action. So it's my pleasure, first of all, let me just acknowledge the speakers, and I'll go straight into our program. First of all, I've already acknowledged the Honourable Prime Minister of Tuvalu. He's no stranger to COP. He is a real champion for the Pacific. He's been a strong advocate for the region and for the world. And I remember, Honourable Prime Minister, in Paris, there was a slogan by Tuvalu, you know, save Tuvalu and you save the world. And that slogan still kind of rings in my ears because it's a simple but very effective message. And so thank you so much for making time to be with us this afternoon. Also like to acknowledge our other panelists. On my right-hand side is Mr. Andrew Yattelman, the Director of the Office of Environment and Emergency Management from the Federated States of Micronesia. Thank you very much. I'd like to also acknowledge Mr. Silinga Kofe, Island Chief from Funafuti, Atoll Tuvalu. And next to him is Mr. Suichi Endo, President of NGO Tuvalu. We may also have the presence of Mr. Jesse Benjamin, who is the Director General of the Ministry of Climate Change, Adaptation, Meteorology and Geohazards, Environment, Energy and Disaster Management. It's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? But we understand that there is an issue with the delegation at the moment, so we may or may not have him. But let's start. So first of all, let me ask the Honourable Prime Minister of Tuvalu, Mr. Enele Sopoaga, to please talk to us about his experiences from Tuvalu's perspective. And as I said, he's been a leader in leading the charge in terms of trying to access climate finance for Tuvalu. So, Honourable Prime Minister, thank you.
Yeah, I want to say, first of all, talofa to you all, but also to thank the organizers, particularly SPREP and friends, including our friends from Tuvalu, Suichi, and his team of Tuvalu Overview. and the community of Funafuti, who you will hear from the High Chief about what they are doing. But thank you very much indeed for all of you for your interest and your support and for being here. I see a lot of familiar faces in the room. I also see the champion, Excellency Ano De Tong. I hope he can join us on the front because these are all Pacific warriors on climate change. So thank you also to our friends from around the globe for your support to Pacific states, but also particularly the vulnerable small island countries like all of us. Now, it is my, yes, Maori President, thank you very much. It is certainly my hope that this message that we're going to share here will be transmitted beyond the walls of this room. The whole idea of this side event is to share the story, to tell the story, and it is, unfortunately, it is not a good story. It is a story that is coming with great alarms, great anxiety, and great uncertainty, because these people about which the stories that you're going to hear are very, very worried. Every day they face the challenge of strong winds, tropical cyclones. Every day they face the challenge of getting fresh water from the grounds because water is contaminated, and also attacking the food crop, the basis of pulaka and papai and taro. And also the breadfruit is no longer growing as it used to be. In the oceans, we are also seeing serious impacts of these events that we believe is caused by climate change, coral bleaching, acidification, a great reduction of fish stocks near the shore. People have to go now to paddle their canoes far and far into the ocean. Why? Because there is acidification and coral bleaching, but also, of course, waste like plastics and oil. So I want to say I'm very grateful to be here as Prime Minister of Tuvalu, and I want to thank again Kosi for arranging for these side events. But we all know we are simply trying here in Bonn to respond to Article 2 of the objectives. The objective of the Convention on Climate Change, which we as the international community put down and signed our governments and commit our governments that we are going to make sure the climate of the world doesn't go beyond the dangerous level. That is the center of our efforts. And the center there calls for immediate and appropriate reductions of greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere. That was done 35 years ago in Rio. I see those of us who were in Rio who are still here. Maybe we have lost our hair. Some are getting a bit oversized now, maybe. But the spirit is there. And now, Article 2 also calls for immediate assistance for adaptation to help those that are most vulnerable to impacts to adapt. Because we cannot cope anymore. The speed of climate change effects is too much because of accelerated greenhouse emissions and global warming. And that's why we need assistance. So Paris Agreement is simply another tool to further implement the convention, and particularly to keep within that Article 2, which we ourselves agreed to. Now here, in Tuvalu, the situation is dire. Therefore, my call to the international community here, we must do it now. Together, we must do actions to reduce greenhouse gases as soon as possible. I don't think there is any point in the world having to wait for somebody to tell us we've gone beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius. Temperature increase above pre-industrial time. I think that is wrong. It is morally wrong and irresponsible. Because why? even at this stage, whatever figure we are already seeing serious destructions to the planet. And what we have seen in the Caribbean just a few days ago, few weeks ago, tell us that we need urgent work to cap temperature increase right now. Just stop emissions immediately, because we don't have to wait. How many more people you want to see drowned into the ocean? Livelihoods being killed, being damaged. For us to realize, to wake up, we should do actions. And how many people in the Pacific you want to see relocated because of cyclones like Winston, TC Pam, whole lives being destroyed? That is totally irresponsible to keep our eyes closed to this. So therefore, I think it is my call here that we must together do it now. And I have to say again, my call in Paris, let's do it now. And my call here is for us to focus on immediate reduction or cap temperature increase by keeping it. All options like coal mining should be kept in the, we must move to renewable energy in the ground. So therefore, in Tuvalu, what are we doing? Since TCPAM and since Paris, we embarked on a vulnerability reduction plan through resilience building for the community. And I'm happy to say this plan seems to be working. It hasn't been acknowledged very widely, but we are doing it in Tuvalu. We have set up out of our own funding, resources, a climate change survival fund in Tuvalu. It's now well beyond $10 million. But we are still needing assistance. So if you have a check around the room or your friend, don't hesitate to write the check. But also at the same time, we are involving the community through inclusive engagement. And that's why I have great pleasure, I have with me the High Chief of Funafuti community, representing his community, and they are committed to doing things on their own with the help of the government. And to help these efforts, I've tried with our own people, with the help of UNDP and of course SPREP, developed a climate change coastal adaptation program. It is the first disbursement of money, $52 Australian million from the Green Climate Fund. And I'm so thankful. Next week, when I go back to Tuvalu, I will host the first meeting of the monitoring board for the project. The funds have already been dispersed. I know it hasn't been acknowledged around, but we are submitting another proposal, maybe 2 more proposals for funding, for further funding from the Green Climate Fund. So this fund, part of that fund will be used to help our community on Funafuti to build their coastal protection and also to help them and a couple of other islands. It will also help develop the capacity of Tuvalu through scholarships of science and engineering, and I'm setting up what I call climate change cadetship in Tuvalu. So I train the engineers and science of Tuvalu. They become experts for long-term sustainability of efforts. These are the efforts we are doing at national level, but also at community level. But let me say, our work here in Bonn should deliver on emission reductions. That's why we need to have a dialogue, a Talanoa dialogue process out of here. We must decide to have that dialogue, Talanoa, every year so we can verify and check on the actions about mitigation, emissions reduction. Also, we must have the adaptation fund decided to serve the Paris Agreement. And finally, the loss and damage. The loss and damage must continue to be part of the COP process. Maybe we request the SBI, the subsidiary body on implementation, to do work on this. We cannot take this outside of the process because we have worked so hard to get into the Paris Agreement. Don't ever think that we can do otherwise to take it out through a dialogue or something outside of the formal intergovernmental process. That would be, I think, a plan for disaster. That will expose the loss and damage again to attacks and possible destruction. And I think it is very, very advisable that we maintain that in the formal process. Colleagues, I've spoken rather long, but my final message to the COP23, this must be Tuvalu. And this is not to refer to Tuvalu as a country. It's putting together urgently on actions, or verifiable actions, for a lasting universe. To get it together now, to save Tuvalu and small islands like Tuvalu, to save the world. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Prime Minister. I think every year you coin a new phrase. I like your comment about let's do it now. Let's do it together. We save Tuvalu, we save the world. So thank you very much again for those illuminating comments and the passion that you display in conveying such a powerful and important message for the whole world. We'll come back, Honourable Prime Minister, later on towards the end of our panel, but let me now move on to the next panelist. On the list, we had Mr. Jesse Benjamin, the Director General of the Ministry of Climate Change and Adaptation Meteorology, Environment and Energy from Vanuatu, but unfortunately, as I indicated earlier on, he's unable to be with us this afternoon. So we are going to move on to the next speaker, who is on my right, Mr. Andrew Yattleman, the Director of the Office of Environment and Emergency Management of the Federated States of Micronesia. Mr. Yattleman will share with us some of the experiences and reflections on the adaptation project, which was approved not too long ago for the Federated States of Micronesia, and some of the challenges and the lessons learned. Andrew.
Thank you very much, Director General Kosi of SPREP. First of all, before I begin, I'd like to pay my respect to the Honorable Prime Minister of Tuvalu, who is with us as one of the panelists. I also want to recognize the other leaders from the Pacific who are here. Please let me not mention you by name, otherwise I miss somebody out and then you'll be offended. So I just wanted to recognize all of you who are here. Before I begin, maybe better that I make some amendment to who I am, since there has been a change of who I have been since assuming my office in 2007. I've been in the COP since then as Director of the Office of Environment and Emergency Management for the Federated States of Micronesia, but just last week, I was sworn in as the new Secretary of the Department of Environment, Climate Change, and Emergency Management for Micronesia. Our Congress has seen the need to elevate climate change as something that we need to make sure that we're not just attending the COPs, but that through our representation, I have always been with the work of Secretary Lauren Robert over there. Every time I go, they put me director in parentheses minister. And so although I carried the portfolio of a ministerial portfolio, because of the title director in the UN system is always very low. So just last week, I got promoted a little bit. But thank you very much. I want to thank SPREP, Director General Kosi, and the organizers for doing this, organizing this for us, this side event. I know we were asked to limit our presentations because we don't have much time, and given the fact that Ben is not here, I may have a little bit more time to speak a little bit beyond 3 minutes. So please bear with me. But thank you very much, Kosi and SPREP, for organizing this. I think it's important, and I want to echo what the Honorable Prime Minister of Tuvalu said. This is not just for us to come and share and listen, and that's it. We hope that the messages that we convey over here goes beyond the walls of this room, so that, if there needs to be, anything needs to be done, at least that message goes out for those that can make it happen. So, given what Director General Kosi said about what I'm supposed to be sharing with you, our experiences, our reflections of Micronesia's accessing the Adaptation Fund. And I really don't know if we are the first in the Pacific to access the Adaptation Fund, or maybe we came after others, but certainly it is Micronesia's first try at accessing the Adaptation Fund. Since its creation up to now, this year, this is the first time we actually applied for it, and we got it, finally, with the help of SPREP. It took us a while, some years, to go through this back and forth, submission of the proposal, and then with questions from the Secretariat and the Board on further strengthening, improving the proposal. So it took a while, back and forth, bouncing this proposal back and forth between Micronesia, SPREP, and then the Adaptation Fund Secretariat and Board. And finally, this year, we finally got the good news that it's been approved. So right now, we're working with SPREP for inception workshop, and then finally to implement. But just wanted to go back to what the Honorable Prime Minister of Tuvalu said about who we are and what we stand for. And all of you know, it's no secret that as small island states, developing states, we've gone out on this world stage at the COPs, fighting for ourselves, our people, our islands, because we're the most vulnerable. We contribute very little to the causes of climate change, yet we're the first to actually feel the impacts of the effects of climate change. And we take pride in saying that in the Western Pacific, Federated States of Micronesia brew tropical storms. Because indeed, in the Pacific, the storms are developed in Micronesia, eastern region of our country, and then they start moving west, west-northwest. If they develop quickly, then it's either the state of Chuuk, or my state of Yap, or Guam, Saipan, and as they move further west, then it's Philippines, China, and all those places. So really, most of the storms that you've heard about in the Western Pacific, they actually develop in Micronesia. And so we pride ourselves as the manufacturer of storms, but at the same time, they're not so good, because when they develop too quickly, then our islands, become the victims of these storms. So we are vulnerable, not just to tropical storms or typhoons, but drought, sea level rise, and others. So the question is, what do we do? How do we adapt so that the livelihoods of our people, our ecosystems and others are protected from the impacts of climate change? And so some years ago, we decided that we should put together a proposal for the Adaptation Fund, which we did with the help of SPREP as an accredited regional implementing entity under the Adaptation Fund. So SPREP came to help us. As I said earlier, I don't have to repeat again. It took a while, 4 years actually, of this back and forth, submission of proposals, came back for further strengthening, and then submit again. For a while, I almost gave up. I thought, this is a very frustrating exercise. Why should we waste our time trying to access something that we're not going to get it? How many years will it take for us to go through this, process of, submission of revised proposal, and yet there are still questions, not just one or two. When SPREP sends me the list of questions from the Secretariat saying the board has issues with these things, and when I just look through it, I already kind of gave up. I said, I don't want to see these questions. I mean, there's too much work to do. So we have to go back and do all these consultations with the communities, get more information, give to SPREP. They get their consultants to put it together, submit again, only for us to receive another list of questions to answer, to satisfy, the Secretariat, the board. And so after a while, you shake your head, you said, forget it. Why do I need to waste my time to, trying to get this adaptation fund? I mean, it's so frustrating. You waste a lot of time, at least in my opinion, that it took us a long time to get this $9 million. So anyway, SPREP has always put on this smile, said, we can do it, Andrew, don't give up. So we keep going at it. Then finally, when the announcement came this year, in May of this year, that the board finally approved it, my frustration just went away. I'm happy, and we're now excited to move towards implementation. But the reflection over just the process it's frustrating. I mean, is that what we want? We continue to ask for simplified process so that, how long before you said that you have been impacted, you are feeling the impacts of climate change, but yet how long will you keep saying that, going to ask for access to this climate finance, but yet it's really difficult to come by because either we need some, PhDs to come and help us package proposals, maybe because we don't have PhD people on our staff or in country. It's just frustrating. So the question to us is, right now we have the Green Climate Fund. It's another layer of headache to go through, but just focusing on this adaptation fund. What do we need? At the end of the day, what is it that we need? Is there a way that the adaptation fund process can be simplified? I mean, it was because we had SPREP with technical and other people and they have the flexibility to be able to, put resources here for us to be able to answer all the myriad of questions that the Secretariat had or the board, that we're able to access, finally get approval to get this funding. Without SPREP's help, we would have given up a long time ago. We would have just abandoned it and then hoped that maybe there's a quicker, faster grant from some donors to look to instead of trying to access this adaptation fund. Adaptation fund is created for the purpose of helping developing countries with adaptation projects, activities. But it's just so frustrating to go through the process of accessing that adaptation fund. Now, the other question that I would like to ask is there a way that other than the accrediting entities, is there another way that other qualified organizations or whatever can also play a role in helping countries access this climate finance? For instance, in our case, the adaptation fund. And so those two questions I wanted to pose to us so that when we go to these different meetings going on, maybe we can bring them up and see how we can, influence how the negotiations are going so that things become more simplified so that us, as the most vulnerable developing small island states, can have quicker access to climate finance than currently is. I don't know the experiences of other small island states, but for this one, I tell you, it was frustrating. Just like I said, we almost gave up on it. But good thing we had a technical organization like SPREP that is accredited by the Adaptation Fund to say, Andrew, don't give up yet. We keep trying, and finally it paid off. We got it in the end. So, sorry, I think maybe I went beyond the 3 minutes, but I just wanted to share that experience with you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Andrew, and can I acknowledge your elevation to your new position? Apologies, we weren't aware of your promotion, but can we acknowledge it and say congratulations? And secondly, can I say that I think our panelists are now beginning to coin new phrases. I think the phrase that you coined, Andrew, was keep at it, don't give up, and I think that's a good phrase to remember. So thank you very much once again for that. We'll come back to some of the questions that you raised, which are very important for us to address. But can I now move to our next speaker? So you heard from the Honorable Prime Minister of Tuvalu about the challenges of Tuvalu. But we're now going to hear from the community in Tuvalu, and in particular, the island chief of the atoll of Funafuti in Tuvalu. And it's very, very important for us not just to hear and to receive the perspective of leaders, but in this case, we'll also have the opportunity to hear from our community leaders. So can I now ask Chief Silinga Kofe of Funafuti Atoll from Tuvalu to share with us his perspective and his experiences. Thank you very much.
Please start slide.
Okay, thank you, moderator. Thanks, moderator, for introducing me. I am here to present our project, which is the Funafala Ecological Island, the FAY project. This is Tuvalu's survival project. Survival from the rise in sea level that is induced by climate change. I will be describing this project, go through it. So we have some slides to go with the, and Tuvalu is on the other side of the world. We are in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and we are 700 miles north of Fiji, close to and just west of the international date line. We are taking off on a plane. We are going all around to the other side of the world. And that's where we are located. I'm sure most of you know where we are. We have 9 islands. Is that 9 or 8? 9. Yeah, we have those islands. 8 is the traditional. There are 8 inhabited islands in Tuvalu, and one of that 8 owns the 9th island. So there we have Funafuti, the Funafuti Atoll, which is the capital of Tuvalu. And we are about 26 square kilometers in area. We have sea level around 2 meters high, and the land further 2 meters above that. Fongafale we have seen rather quickly. Funafuti is the capital. More than 50% of the population reside there. Fongafale is the main settlement. Funafala We have a large lagoon, as you saw in the earlier map of Funafuti. We have those facilities you are seeing we have the hospital, meeting houses, Whalekaupule Hotel, government offices. We have powerhouses that also you saw there, generating energy, electricity for the island. Presently is fossil fuel based, but moving to solar energy. Then we have our airfield there, our multi-purpose airfield. Lots of activity take place there, besides landing aircrafts. We have 2 inter-island vessels that do the running around our widely scattered islands. Our wind system, we have westerlies coming from the west. And there you see, wave action happening, bringing in, at times it gets a bit rough, and also the easterly trade winds, the trade wind from the east, and then we have this rather problem of erosion that you saw there. That was my land. You see the coconut trees falling down. And here is a picture of an islet there, one of the islets across the lagoon. And that was in 2015. But then Cyclone Pam came around, and we woke up the next day. There wasn't any island. It's gone. It's been washed away by the cyclone. Sure. And so that's the destructive impacts. In February, every year we have the king tide, and the water comes up seeped up from the ground. As you see there are it's a big problem that we have every February each year. And this is the airfield. And when that happens, we sometimes have to switch off the power generation because it's dangerous. And so that's the kind of things we have to put up with every year. Then we have the cyclones. Water comes up onto the land. As you can see, this is in Vaitupu Island in 2015. That's only 2 years ago. It creates havoc amongst the people and the plant, the animals, highly disruptive to the lives. See people running around looking to save their lives, and it's something that is normal with us, but maybe not normal with you. It's something we have to put up with every year. In any way, water, see the papai pits or the taro pulaka plants, that's the water from the sea. And that will kill those plants. Water is important for life, and we keep these in tanks, water tanks. And the water comes from heaven, from the rain, and they are kept there. These tanks come from the European Union and Australia. They paid for these tanks. So we are grateful to them for no water and no food. Well, will migration be the only option for us? That is a burning question that needs to be thought about greatly. Yeah, well, we have our culture. We have the Tuvalu culture, which is basically fishing and dancing and fatele, making handicrafts, and this life of fishing there will be lost. We will lose this lifestyle, and that's when we, Kiribati, same Marshall Islands, and Tuvalu, if we are to go under, then we will lose that kind of existent life. Now, a great majority of us in Tuvalu don't want to leave Tuvalu, and that also is the official policy of the government of Tuvalu on migration and displacement. We don't want to leave the country, although people can leave if they just want to, but as I said, most of them don't want to, because what lies ahead for them in another country is really not as good as the life that they will leave behind. And that is the premise of this project. The Funafala Ecological Island Project is based on that policy. And to explain a little bit more on, if you want any more of those kind of photographs, that's the address you go to on the internet, Instagram.com, Tuvalu. And now I would like now to invite Mr. Suichi Endo. Is the director of and owner of the Tuvalu Overview, which is an NGO, to present the more technical side of this project. So Endo has been in Tuvalu for 20 years.
Too long.
He's done a lot of good work for planting mangrove trees and all kinds of developmental work. And we are thankful to him.
Yeah.
And he would like now to, I will take over.
Thank you very much, Seringa. And thank you very much from PM Nere Sopanga. And also, I have to appreciate this opportunity to introduce my idea to the world society. Seringa already mentioned it. My first time in Tuvalu is 1998. And I was a startup member of the top-level domain project. So top-level domain project is, this is Funafuchi. Yes, that TV is a very famous top level in the world, for especially the media people. So Tuvalu government received some contract fee from this project, and then joined the United Nations. This is a quite old time story. So this 20 years, I keep touch the Tuvalu and do project, several projects proceeded. And now, I have shared the thoughts of the people of Tuvalu. And now, through the Seringa's story, everyone in here share our thought and heart, spirits, as like me. I hope so. So we want not to migrate to another place, but problem is we don't have another place in the country. We don't have a mountain, and we don't have a big land, no river, no lakes. It's just only coral atoll in there. This is a problem. Then I think we try to make a land. Hopefully, we try to make a mountain, but the mountains are too big. So I tried the mangrove plantation first to make a land like this. This is my aunt, Mr. Prime Minister Nelson Panga. So he is a very strong politician and also very
Supposed to be confidential.
no, very powerful activist also, you know. And I also have to thank you very much to our sponsor. This is a Japanese oil company, Cosmo Oil EcoCard Foundation. They support me over 10 years. And mangrove plantation still going. Some place growing up like this. That's very healthy and success. But this way, take a time. Maybe 50 years or some more. We cannot wait to make land due to this project. So we need another way. Mm-hmm. So my focus to the Funafara area. Near the, inside the capital island, capital atoll, and near the capital city also. And this place, this is Funafara, this small atoll. So the South Pacific current always go like this. Then this flow coming to the atoll through this passage. Then sun moving to here, influence this current. And also this big atoll inside. Inside of this big atoll, plenty sand from the coral or shell or the another seaweed or some kind of. So we can use this plenty sand just gather to this inside this pocket. So this natural power maybe 5 decades or 10 decades after make land on here. But this way also take a time, you know. So we need a human power, artificial something using on here. This is my idea. But this place is so beautiful like this. I don't like the change this place, but you know, we cannot survive only with beauty. So it's maybe no choice. So this place, size like this, And area like this. This is a 20% size of nation of Tuvalu. That's quite big, but we can, how do you say, we can change this island. And also compare another object, the New York. You also show the New York. And this is, Dubai. The island area, almost same, this small atoll. Then, and also this unique island using the sand pump technology. This is a dredge from the sea sand. So maybe it's possible if we're using the oil money or some other kind. And also we have experience using this technology front of the government house. Last year, this contract already finished. Then there are beautiful sandy beach now. So now we know that this technology is very useful. So we want to use this technology to survive. But this artificial land very weak to the wave. But this place is a very adapt this problem also. So the easterly wind coming here, but protect coral reach this place, and also the westerly wind coming, but there are also a coral reach protect this place. Like this. So I think new island on here, but this island maybe, however, depend on the heights, of course. Then start make the land. So 3 dredges, 3 sand pump coming inside, and 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
Yeah, 2.5 years. It's quite long, but only 2.5 years. Then this place heights. Hopefully from sea level 5 to 10 meters, depending on the sea level rise. Then we just wait 1 decade because coral or shell sand are set to the very tight, like a concrete. You take 10 years. Then after that, install the airport, some building. This image, it is not from me. My friend drawing this one. It is not exactly. And also we want to install the resort facility, port, and pond for the rainwater. Then people migrate to this island, and this house is also a little bit something. So this is our idea to survive. The budget for construction work is $200 to $400 million. That's very expensive, but maybe it's possible. And this price is depend on the height of the land. High land is expensive. It means sea level rising cost more expensive, like this. So to keep cost lower than now, we should keep the temperature rise below 1.5 degree. I ask everyone, please keep 1.5 degrees. Thank you very much.
Can I just finish the? Yeah, I just want to wrap up the presentation on the project and to thank you for listening, for coming. I know that you all now want to contribute financially to the project. You are welcome. Contact the Office of the Prime Minister if you want to. Thank you.
Thank you, Silinga.
Thank you very much, Chief Silinga Kofe, and also to Endo-san. I think you've just seen the reality of what happens on a real atoll, small island in the Pacific. Some of us who are from the Pacific know what it's like to wake up in the morning and you get the sea coming from the ocean side and also from the lagoon side. It can be quite scary sometimes. But what is very powerful about this joint presentation from Chief Silinga and Endo-san is that they're not waiting for things to happen. They're already beginning to realize a vision through this very important project that they're working on. And I must say that I'm very, it's exciting to see that you're looking at what's happening in Dubai, in New York, and learning from these ideas and these experiences, and then taking what's relevant for your island. And trying to make it work. And we recognize that you're not waiting for people to come and help you. You're helping yourself first. You're helping to grow your island, even though it is already under threat to rising sea level. You're looking at ways to make it grow back, which is something that we don't hear too much about. We are mindful of the fact that it's going to cost quite a lot, and that's the reality again of the impacts of climate change, is that you're looking at not just millions but billions of dollars actually. And I think the key point that, if I can just further elaborate on what your presentation has been, is that it's important that we act now, because if we don't, the cost of actually acting later on is going to be so much more. And I think that one's the key messages that's coming strongly through this very powerful presentation. And the other point that that's come through is the human side. It's the fact that it's not just losing our islands, it's losing our social fabric of life, our culture, the ability to be able to get on a canoe and go and fish when you want to fish. The ability to just walk to someone else's house and just have dinner and have lunch together and be able to do things socially as a community. That's what's at stake. That's the threat that we're facing. It's about survival. It's about our livelihoods. It's about our communities and being able to maintain our cultures and our livelihoods. And so, can I thank you once again, Chief Silinga and Suichi Endo, for that very powerful joint presentation, and the video, which images like this speak a lot more powerfully to us about the real challenges that you face on small island atolls such as Tuvalu. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the formal presentations. We have a little bit of time for questions. You don't have many opportunities to ask the Prime Minister of Tuvalu questions and our esteemed panel here. And so I'm just going to give a minute or so for maybe 2 or 3 questions. And if you're going to ask a question, can I ask you to put your hand up, and we have a roving mic somewhere. Endo, can we borrow your mic? All right. And can you make your question clear and short? Okay, so that then we can have others to ask questions. So at the front here.
Thank you. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. Prime Minister Sopoaga spoke of the need for verifiable action to save Tuvalu and save the world. Interestingly, that raises the issue of transparency, which is under discussion in Article 13, Article 9.5 debates. I wonder if your strong position that you said about verifiability, how does that translate into a position of Tuvalu and maybe of more broadly of some of the other island nations regarding transparency? Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Prime Minister.
It is a critical question, but I think I want to bring up two issues. First is the necessity of verification. We cannot verify actions unless we have an ongoing facilitative process, a dialogue which is called for under the Loss and Damage Article 8 of the Paris Agreement. That is a legal provision in the agreement requiring our actions. And I hope we can get the decision out of Bonn for the establishment or the operationalization of that very provision, about which we, the world, have signed on and verified. There are moves now to take this away from the formal process. This is dangerous. It is a recipe for disaster. The second point is about representation. We small island countries who are already suffering, we have to be in that process of facilitation and facilitative and a Talanoa process. Once you take it out of the formal process, it will be only available to those with the funding resources to attend and participate. We are here in Bonn, traveling, as the High Chief was saying, all the way half a globe away from Tuvalu and Kiribati and those in the Pacific. This is very tasking. It's challenging. And by taking this process of verification away from the formal process of the COP, away from the agenda, you are going to only allow, you are going to, again, to marginalize the already suffering people like Tuvalu to the process. Only those with resources will come and dialogue in open forums without conclusions. And the discussion, believe me, will go on and on and on forever with no conclusions. We, as a delegation, Tuvalu will not accept that here in Bonn. We want decisions to be made here to operationalize the facilitative process to be decided here by us parties. And again, on the loss and damage, we have to make a decision because this is exactly pertinent for small islands like Tuvalu. My country is already adapting to the impacts. There comes a time when we can no longer adapt. And that's the very the need for loss and damage is beyond adaptation. And that's why I hope colleagues around the room will support. We must have a decision here for work to continue permanently on the process of COP and its bodies, SBI in particular, to work on actions on loss and damage. Because with this, it allows the basis for insurance facilities to help the islands cope, as you have seen, with the impacts of climate change, and also to deal with the issue of displacement, protecting the rights of people displaced by impacts of climate change. And that's exactly what we intend to do here in Bonn, and I want to call on your support that we must make these decisions. Never allow, we don't need to wait for Poland, for COP24. Why would we have to? We've already got the Paris Agreement. Let's operationalize. Let's walk the talk. Finally, I want to refer again to the options that we are doing on the ground. In addition to the nice presentation, we are already doing this in Tuvalu, reclaiming lands. And you've seen in a glimpse using the technology. And I must thank the previous Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mari Macaulay of New Zealand, for your intervention on filling up the borrow pits, because that's where we got the technology and the idea. Now we use the same technology to dredge sands from the lagoon, and now you've got to come to Tuvalu to witness what we have done. It's a new island. We've reclaimed land, and I'm going to use that to host a forum in 2019. Forum from the island leaders. I want to showcase we can do it, yes. And I want to thank you, and I want to invite you to that forum 2019. The other point I want to acknowledge is the work of our representation in the GCF, Ambassador Feturi, Elisaya of Samoa. Can you give him a big clap? And the reason I'm saying this, because he is doing a great job for us, sits in representing our vision, and the idea of access, the problem of access, as Minister Andrew now was referred to, which is very, very critical. But he's done a lot, and I think we need to work also in order to make use of his efforts and hope we can get more from the GCF. So, sorry, I have expanded a little bit, Kosi, but thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Honourable Prime Minister, for that. I think you heard a very strong message from the Honourable Prime Minister. We need a decision on L&D. Can't wait for Poland. We still got time for maybe one more question. Any burning? We have someone there on the right-hand side. Can we have the microphone? Thank you.
Hello. Hello. Thank you very much for being here today and for speaking. My question relates to the Funalafa project. Funafala, excuse me. The Funafala project, and I noticed that it's going to be placed in the capital atoll, but you have citizens living in other areas of the country and other islands. Are you expecting to have enough capacity to bring all of those people to that location, or are they less at risk due to climate change issues? And if not, have you thought about other methods of adaptation or dealing with the issue, including migrating or moving people to other countries? And if so, what are those other things that you've thought of?
In the concept note on this project, we mentioned that the project will be a sanctuary for Tuvaluans. There will be villages for each of the islands, can fit onto that piece of land. And it can also be, if we have the money, extended to other islands, can also have build up their, add on another 5 or 10 meters of land to their islands. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Endo-san, did you want to add to? Yep. Just been told that we've got time for perhaps maybe one or two more questions. So, right, there's a hand at the back there and then in the middle. Can we have the microphones, please?
Well, thank you very much. From the presentation, accessing adaptation fund has been neck-breaking. I think to the extent of being frustrating because it has been a long and laborious process. I think these are the experiences of developing countries, Africa as well. I wonder whether you have been able to get the reaction of the Secretariat about those problems and what can be done to expedite the process of accessing the funds. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Andrew, perhaps maybe you can kick off, and then perhaps maybe I can add to that.
Thank you very much, Director General Kosi. I mean, actually, I posed a question myself. That's one of the two questions that I posed, asking if there is a way that this could be better, simplified, so that the access to climate finance is easier through this adaptation fund. So that was actually my question. We did not raise the question, but I don't know if SPREP, which is that was helping us, whether they raised the question. And perhaps I'll defer to Director General Kosi. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So one of the differences between the GCF and the Adaptation Fund is that it doesn't have a provision for preparing projects like the GCF. And so that's one of the obstacles that we found in helping FSM in accessing funds for this particular project. So that meant we had to go, as the implementing entity, we had to go look for funds somewhere else. We were fortunate to actually use the what we call the RTSM, which is a mechanism that enables us to deploy experts on the ground. And so had it not been for that mechanism, I'm afraid to say that FSM would not be speaking to you about an approved adaptation fund project. And so that's one of the I would say challenges and the obstacles that we faced in trying to help FSM, amongst a number of other things. Prime Minister, please.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a very important question. I feel rather sad, having sat two terms in the Adaptation Fund Board when it started. I tried as much as possible to simplify procedures. There is provision for enabling activities there for the Adaptation Fund, but the important point that I want to raise to respond is that if that is a situation now, it's going to get very difficult because of the increasing scarcity of resources. And therefore, we need to streamline this or rationalize the climate financing as on a whole. The landscape is not helpful. It's getting more confused because we have the Green Climate Fund, we have the GEF funds, which are the LDC funds, and the Special Climate Change, and the Adaptation Fund, of course. And I think it is important that we bring all these under the Green Climate Fund for easier management and operationalization. We don't have different sets of rules for the Green Climate Fund and the GEF funds, including Special Climate Change and the LDC funds. After all, they try to help the people who the same purpose anyway. So my call, Director General, is for us to urge, encourage parties here to make a COP decision so that all these funds should come under the GCF. And therefore, it will build a stronger basis for responding, especially for adaptation to needs of developing countries who are all vulnerable, but especially the most vulnerable like SIDS and LDCs. I'm encouraging and asking you to please support that we have a strong decision, especially the Adaptation Fund must be transferred and decided by COP to serve the Paris Agreement. If we lose this opportunity, it's going to be difficult. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honourable Prime Minister. And just to pick up on that point, as you said, there is a strong push to make sure that the Adaptation Fund does serve the Green Climate Fund. The problem now is that we seem to be bogged down on operational issues and legal issues, and so we're hoping to have a decision on that. I'd like to acknowledge the former president of Kiribati, Anita Tong. I think, can we have the mic, President Tong?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know you're about to wrap up the discussions, but before you do that, I do want to make a very short statement. And I think to thank you for this opportunity to share this, and of course the Micronesian experience. But I do want to congratulate Tuvalu for being so bold, because this has been the question that the countries, the most vulnerable countries have had to face, but to go ahead and move, I think is something highly commendable, because nobody's going to do it for us. And we have to define it and go ahead with it. And so let me congratulate Tuvalu, the chief, for coming up, and of course, Ms. Dendo, for coming up with this wonderful idea. It's a solution out of the box. And I think that's what we've all been looking for. And Tuvalu has had the courage to come forward and step forward and show it, because there is no doubt in my mind that once you have done it, we will all ask ourselves the question, why didn't we think of it? So congratulations. Thank you for sharing this experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm told that we still have time for one question. Yes, please.
Thank you. It's working? Thank you. My name is Tetsuji Ida from Kyodo News. I'm a science news writer. It's very nice to know that Japanese people helping Tuvalu a lot. And on the other hand, as you know, that Japanese industries, Japanese government, and Japanese financial institutions helping to build big coal-fire plant in many East Asian countries, as you know. I think I saw a lot of discrepancy of attitude among Japanese. Prime Minister, could you give some comment on Japanese foreign aid to build big coal-fire plant in many Asian countries?
Prime Minister Sopoanga, would you like to respond to that?
Tuvalu is a good friend of Japan. And we want to remain as such. But let me also acknowledge Ambassador Lika of FSM, a long friend and a long, in fact, warrior as well on SIT's issues of sustainable development. Absolutely. I mean, well, I think the question really is, what choice do we have? Can we save the planet by doing urgent actions to reduce and keep the target of 1.5 Celsius degree? Or do we want to give up and have all sorts of pollutions in the atmosphere, including emissions from coals? I think it's already self-evident. We need to walk away from the current energy mix and move to renewable energy. It's safe, it's friendly, and it's sustainable. And of course, for small islands, it's affordable. So my answer is that keep the coals in the ground where it belongs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Prime Minister. Can I quickly just wrap up a couple of key points, just picking up on what the panelists have said, and then we'll finish. You've heard it from the Prime Minister. Let's do it now. Let's keep the coal in the ground. Let's cap it to 1.5. Let's do it together. You save Tuvalu, you save the world. And I think that's all I'm going to say in terms of what the PM has said. I think that speaks for itself. The presentation that you saw from our colleagues, the chief of Funafuti and Endo-san, speaks for itself. It tells us the story of the human side of the impacts of climate change on a small atoll in the Pacific. You heard from Minister Andrew Gentleman about the challenges of a small island state in trying to access climate finance. Now, you did raise a question, Andrew. Is there a simpler way of doing that? Well, I'm hoping that the Adaptation Fund will follow the good example by the GCF, which recently launched a new policy on a simplified approval process. That can be possibly one way. The other way, I suppose, Minister Andrew, is that if you had one of your entities accredited to the Adaptation Fund, that could help you have direct access to Adaptation Fund. But again, that's a challenge in itself. We understand the challenges that FSM had gone through. We, as an accredited entity, face the same headaches. But we like to think that things are moving along. I wanted to finish off by just reminding us, my remarks here are on the GCF, and that is in the last 2 years in the Pacific, we have seen the Pacific access over 270 million for 7 countries. And so there is some progress. Yes, there are challenges. It's not been easy, but you've got to remember the GCF has only been in place for 2 years. And so there's, in a sense, they have transitioned from an infant to a slightly more matured adult. But the work goes on. And so we are engaging the GCF. The countries have a bit more history and experience in engaging the GCF. So let's work with the GCF. Let's try out the new approval process. It's capped at 10 million. You have an opportunity there. And let me also say that with the NAP, there is an opportunity for 3 million. No country, as far as I know, from the Pacific has accessed that. That's 3 million waiting there for you. So let's not forget that there are opportunities for us to access, and it's not just the NAP. There's the readiness program that is unutilized. Most of us, with the exception, I think, of Fiji, most of the Pacific Island countries have not utilized their readiness funding facility. So whilst we are aware of the challenges that we face in terms of process, things are improving, but there are opportunities for us to access funds. Let's not forget that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all from me. Thank you so much for your patience. And can I say thank you to all of our panelists. Honorable Prime Minister, thank you so much for being a strong advocate for the Pacific, for being a champion, not just for the Pacific, but for the world. And your passion and your perspective, I think, is self-explanatory. It speaks for all of us. Let's do it now, as you say. And to our friends on the left, our chief from Funafuti, Zilinga, thank you so much. Oendo-san, we appreciate the innovative solutions that you bring to small island states like Tuvalu. And on my right-hand side, Minister Andrew Yantelman, again, we acknowledge and we congratulate you on your elevation, but you have SPREP on, by your side to help you to access climate funds, and we're here to help you to address some of those issues. But thank you very much for your time. And ladies and gentlemen, that's it from SPREP. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon.